Imagine turning on your computer in 2026, expecting the usual frustration that comes with bloated updates, forced restarts, confusing menus, and constant reminders that your system is no longer really yours, and instead being greeted by something that feels familiar, fast, calm, and genuinely under your control. That is exactly the promise Zorin OS 18 brings to the table, and in this full deep dive review, we're going to explore whether it truly deserves the title of the best Linux alternative to Windows in 2026. This is not a spec sheet walkthrough or a dry technical breakdown, but a real-world, everyday experience of using Zorin OS 18 as your main operating system, whether you're coming from Windows 10, Windows 11, or even Mac OS, and wondering if Linux is finally ready for you. Zorin OS has always positioned itself differently from most Linux distributions. While many distros focus heavily on developers, system administrators, or Linux veterans, Zorin's core mission has been clear for years: make Linux feel comfortable and familiar for regular users. With Zorin OS 18, that mission feels more refined than ever. From the very first boot, the system feels intentionally designed to reduce friction. The installer remains one of the most beginner-friendly in the Linux ecosystem, guiding you step by step with clear language, sensible defaults, and no unnecessary jargon. Even users who have never touched Linux before can realistically go from USB boot to a fully working desktop in under half an hour, and that ease of entry is a big reason why Zorin OS continues to gain attention in a world where Windows is becoming increasingly restrictive. Once installation is complete and you land on the desktop, the first thing that stands out is how polished everything feels. Zorin OS 18 continues to refine its signature design language, blending a Windows-like layout with subtle modern touches that make it feel current rather than copycat. The taskbar placement, system tray behavior, window controls, and start menu-style app launcher all feel instantly recognizable to Windows users, especially those coming from Windows 10 or Windows 11. At the same time, nothing feels cheap or unfinished. Animations are smooth without being distracting, icons are consistent, and the overall theme strikes a balance between familiarity and originality. This is important because it means you don't feel like you're learning an entirely new way to use a computer, but you also don't feel like you're stuck in the past. Performance is another area where Zorin OS 18 quietly shines. On modern hardware, the system feels snappy, responsive, and lightweight compared to contemporary Windows builds. Applications open quickly, multitasking feels fluid, and background processes stay mostly out of your way. What's more impressive is how well Zorin OS 18 handles older or mid-range hardware. Computers that struggle under the weight of Windows updates suddenly feel refreshed and usable again. This makes Zorin OS especially appealing in 2026, when many users are being pushed to upgrade hardware simply because their operating system demands it. With Zorin, you get a second life for your machine, and that alone is a compelling reason to consider the switch. Daily usability is where Zorin OS 18 truly proves its worth. File management feels intuitive, with a clean and powerful file manager that supports tabs, previews, and drag-and-drop workflows without confusion. System settings are organized logically, with clear labels and helpful descriptions that don't assume you're a Linux expert. Whether you're changing display scaling, connecting Bluetooth devices, managing printers, or adjusting power settings, everything feels approachable. Unlike some Linux distributions where simple tasks can feel scattered across multiple tools, Zorin OS keeps things centralized and easy to understand, which is crucial for users who just want to get work done. One of the biggest concerns for anyone considering Linux as a Windows alternative is software compatibility, and Zorin OS 18 addresses this concern head-on. Out of the box, you get a strong selection of pre-installed applications that cover most everyday needs. A modern web browser, a full Office suite, media players, image viewers, and system utilities are all ready to go. For many users, this means you can start working immediately without hunting for basic tools. The Zorin software store further simplifies app discovery, presenting applications in a clean, App Store-like interface that feels familiar to users coming from Windows or mobile platforms. When it comes to running Windows applications, Zorin OS has long leaned into compatibility layers and user-friendly integrations, and Zorin OS 18 continues this approach. While Linux is not Windows and never will be, Zorin makes a serious effort to bridge the gap. Many popular Windows applications run surprisingly well through compatibility tools, and the system often handles the setup process with minimal user intervention. For productivity apps, older software, and even some games, the experience can be good enough that you forget you're not on Windows. Of course, not every Windows application will work perfectly, but in 2026, the list of usable software on Linux is larger than ever, and Zorin OS is one of the best distributions at making that reality accessible to normal users. Gaming is another area where perceptions around Linux have changed dramatically, and Zorin OS 18 benefits from that progress. While hardcore gamers may still prefer specialized gaming distributions, Zorin OS is more capable than many expect. Modern graphics drivers are easy to install, popular gaming platforms are readily available, and performance is often comparable to Windows on the same hardware. Casual gamers and even many serious players can enjoy a wide range of titles without constant tweaking. This matters because gaming has long been one of the final barriers preventing people from leaving Windows, and while Zorin OS doesn't completely erase that barrier, it lowers it significantly. Security and privacy are also central to Zorin OS 18's appeal. In an era where operating systems increasingly collect data, push online accounts, and blur the line between local computing and cloud services, Zorin OS feels refreshingly respectful. You are not forced to sign in with an online account. You are not bombarded with ads, and you are not constantly nudged toward services you didn't ask for. Updates are transparent, controllable, and generally painless. You decide when to update and what to install, which restores a sense of ownership that many users feel they've lost on mainstream platforms. Stability is another strong point. Zorin OS is designed to be reliable for long-term use, making it suitable not just for hobbyists, but also for professionals, students, and even businesses. The system feels predictable in the best possible way. Updates don't randomly break workflows. Major changes are introduced thoughtfully, and the overall experience prioritizes consistency over flashy experimentation. This makes Zorin OS 18 an excellent daily driver, especially for users who need their computer to just work without surprises. Customization is present, but not overwhelming. Unlike some Linux distributions that throw endless options at you, Zorin OS 18 offers curated customization tools that let you adjust the look and feel without diving into complex settings. You can change layouts, themes, icon styles, and behavior with a few clicks, tailoring the system to your preferences while keeping everything cohesive. For former Windows users, this level of control feels empowering rather than confusing, because it enhances the experience without demanding technical knowledge. For productivity, Zorin OS 18 holds its own extremely well. Office tasks, web-based work, coding, content creation, and general multitasking all feel smooth and reliable. The system stays out of your way, letting you focus on your actual work rather than managing the operating system. This is perhaps one of Zorin's greatest strengths. It doesn't try to impress you with complexity. It impresses you by being calm, stable, and efficient. Over time, that reliability becomes more valuable than any flashy feature. From an educational standpoint, Zorin OS 18 is also a great gateway into the Linux ecosystem. It introduces core Linux concepts gently, without forcing you into the terminal or overwhelming you with technical details. At the same time, more advanced users still have access to powerful tools and deeper customization if they want it. This dual-layer approach means Zorin OS can grow with you. You can start as a complete beginner and gradually explore more advanced features at your own pace, without ever feeling locked out or left behind. In terms of aesthetics, Zorin OS 18 continues to refine its visual identity. The interface feels modern and clean, with attention paid to spacing, typography, and visual consistency. Dark mode looks excellent, light mode remains readable and professional, and overall the system feels comfortable to use for long periods. This might sound like a small detail, but visual comfort plays a huge role in daily computing, especially for users who spend hours in front of their screens. Community and support are also worth mentioning. Zorin OS benefits from an active and growing user base, with plenty of tutorials, guides, and discussions available online. While it may not have the sheer size of some other Linux communities, the focus on beginners means that help is often easier to understand and more welcoming. Official documentation is clear, and third-party resources continue to expand as the distribution gains popularity. For users transitioning from Windows, this sense of community support can make a big difference. Looking at Zorin OS 18 in the broader context of 2026, its appeal becomes even clearer. Windows users are facing increasing system requirements, more aggressive monetization, and a growing sense that their computers are no longer fully under their control. At the same time, Linux has matured significantly, shedding much of its reputation for being difficult or unfriendly. Zorin OS sits perfectly at the intersection of these trends. It offers the freedom and transparency of Linux, without the steep learning curve, making it one of the most practical alternatives available. Of course, no operating system is perfect, and Zorin OS 18 is no exception. There will always be niche software that doesn't run well, specific hardware that requires extra configuration, or workflows that are better supported on other platforms. Users deeply tied to proprietary Windows-only tools may still face challenges. However, the key difference is that Zorin OS 18 minimizes these issues as much as possible and provides clear paths forward, rather than leaving users stranded. After spending serious time with Zorin OS 18, it becomes clear that this is not just a Linux for beginners gimmick, but a genuinely capable, well-designed operating system that can replace Windows for a large number of users. It respects your time, your hardware, and your privacy. It feels familiar without being stale, modern without being bloated, and powerful without being intimidating. For anyone in 2026 asking whether there is finally a real alternative to Windows that doesn't feel like a compromise, Zorin OS 18 makes a very strong case. So is Zorin OS 18 the best Linux alternative to Windows in 2026? For many people, the answer is yes. Especially for home users, students, professionals, and anyone tired of fighting their operating system instead of using it, Zorin OS 18 delivers an experience that feels refreshingly sane. It may not be the loudest or most experimental Linux distribution, but it doesn't need to be. Its strength lies in its balance, its polish, and its focus on real-world usability. And in a computing landscape that often feels chaotic and overcomplicated, that kind of balance is exactly what many users have been waiting for.